Hi there, friends. My name is Kate. Welcome to my channel, Trinergy Awakens Naturally. This is number 6. Yeah, it's number 6 in this series having to do with mental health tips and ways that we can keep ourselves from just going off the chain, and if we've gone off the chain, maybe help to get ourselves back before we're completely gone. We're going to talk about looking at evidence-based, stuff here, some facts, when we're having a reaction, a response, a reaction that's not so kind, or isn't seemingly so balanced. It seems a bit on the extreme side, or, it's not our normal thing. We're feeling panicked, we're feeling angry, we're feeling sad, we're feeling depressed, we're feeling out of control in one way or another, whatever it is, hostile, unwilling, all kinds of things. Then if we're in the middle of that, whatever it is, it's taking us to the extreme moment or the extreme thought process of, my emotions are out here with it. It has to do with understanding, look at the actual scenario of what's happening. Are we dealing with what's happening right now, or are we tweaking back to something that happened 20 years ago or 10 minutes ago or this morning with, the dog or something like that? Are we in that moment of understanding that our reaction is based on something that's happening right here, right now? Take, for instance, a customer service person who gets the brunt of somebody's, bad marriage is just, splayed out and spit out and burped out onto them. A lot of customer service people, they get the dump of people that are angry in way other areas of their lives. Because what reason would I have to go postal on, somebody at Starbucks? I wouldn't, unless that person was just absolutely rude. And even then, do I need to do anything other than say, that's really rude and I gotta go and I'll never be back, and possibly make a complaint? But when we're, really dumping in a direction, or we're having, anxiety or whatever it is, let's look at the reality of the situation. Are we talking about the person in front of us or the situation in front of us? Or are we really taken back to something else that we've just, put that on the donkey's back and said, bring that with us. Let's bring this to here, right now, that we're going to dump on this employee that, they have nothing to do with our lives. It's not their fault that, I don't know, that's not available on the menu right now. We can have the disappointment, and we can even have the anger about, well, you never have this, we can have that. It's how deep are we going into that, and what is that based on in what we're actually dealing with? Particularly panicky situations. If we look at the situation that we're dealing with in terms of panic or rage, you can put it in anywhere you want to. I'll keep it just in panic right at the moment so it's clear to understand. But I've been talking, I hike a lot, and so in other videos I've mentioned it, that I get to certain places because I'm very afraid of heights. I work on that. That's something that I'm consciously working to get more okay with, because I've been successful there. It's not to mean that everything that we attempt to get, okay with or desensitized to is going to work. So I want to put that out there. But when I hike, sometimes I get to places that are, when I'm on foot, when I'm driving, there's other things I do to help myself get through that. But when I hike, that's a little more up close and personal and really challenges me more in my anxiety of, that's really scary looking. I don't like that. It's not a wide trail. It's only really wide enough for me and, a gerbil maybe. And, am I really seeing what's here? Is the anxiety based in the fact that this is a reality, that trail's really not very wide, and it really does not have, a lot of footing there. That's based in the reality. My anxiety then is commensurate with what I'm seeing. If the trail is enough for a Mack truck and, all the friends that go along with it to ride, then maybe I can look at that differently and see how I might, be able to proceed forward. It all depends on my own instinct and, what my body's telling me. But if we're talking in a perfect world, I would be able to identify that in a trail, when I'm walking and it starts to narrow down and I'm seeing, all 11,000 feet, I don't want to see that. I'm not that skilled, or I don't feel that comfortable in that skill to really say that that's not reality, that I can either just deny it or that I can, fry and die right there with the, oh my God, that's not going to serve me. So, not going that far where I've, backed myself into a terrible corner, as part of the equation. However, once I'm actually somewhere where I start to feel the intimidation, when I hike, when I see that coming, I learned to look ahead, look a lot further ahead than just at your feet, because it might get real narrow real fast. But I look ahead and I see, and I can start predicting based on reality, facts, what's really going on here. the trail seems to be narrowing, I'm not going to be comfortable with that more than likely, because the reality is that, I haven't been hiking that long. I don't have that much experience. 6 months experience even is not enough, not for me to feel comfortable. And I definitely don't want to just ignore that, reality, no matter what my wants would be. I really wanted to get to the top. Not bad enough that you're willing to die for it, because you won't make it there anyway. So let's be real about what's happening, Kate. Okay, and I'm okay. I'm more on the realist side than the fantasy side anyway, probably. So looking at the real thing is really what's most helpful to help me avert, the anxiety and anxiousness anyway. But then once I've kind of gotten there, look at it and see, well, do you have good reason to be anxious? And if you do, that's going to go one direction. And if you don't, that might go another. They might go both the same way. But you can at least avert an immediate, overreaction. And so as I see it coming, I can look at the reality of this as, yes, this is getting out of my comfort zone, and I just need to turn around and spin back the other direction and see you later. And that's good. Other times, though, I can see what's a way that I can, that's a very narrow pass. There was one specifically, blew my mind. I'm like, is this a challenge that somebody put in deliberately? I mean, do you have a video camera somewhere? They're punkin hikers at Red Canyon. There's a pretty, doable trail, and it's mountainside. It's going to have some elevation and cliffy type stuff. That's what it is. And, if you don't like that, then don't go there, right? So I obviously go knowing that there's going to be elevation and cliffs at some point, But this particular trail, it's pretty wide, it's enough two people can walk side by side on it. I like those Mack truck ones, though, that's good, but they're not realistic. But it's suddenly narrowed down to, I was almost having to, from my comfort level, I was going to eyeball that and see nothing more than just, having to put one foot right in front of the other, like I was walking a tightrope, and it made me very uncomfortable. But when I looked at it, a little more closely, before I just got completely stuck right there, I'm like, oh, I think it's mostly just that, I'm going to really be wigged out that I can see a little more than I usually do on this trail, because there's not the underbrush, there's not anything except being able to see, very directly that there's that down there is right there, and I'm not far from it, and nothing can catch me. I mean, that's the reality of what I was thinking also, is that there aren't any bushes and things that will kind of catch me. Probably nothing's going to save me, but it just makes my mind feel better if I could somehow believe that, the reality is it'll be a less tragic event. Maybe if there's a chance of surviving, if I've got things that will stop me before I actually make it all the way to the ground, that is the reality of it. But I wasn't seeing any of that, and I was just kind of seeing mostly the down part, and a narrowing trail. Like, all right, how narrow is it for realsy? And it wasn't quite as narrow as, a tightrope. That wasn't exactly the way that was. And I actually took a picture of it, from where I was. I braced myself against there was a big rock, thank goodness, that I could plant myself against, and never turn my back on the cliff. It might sneak up on me or something. So I, just landed myself, just pushed myself back on the thing and took a picture right quick and looked at it like up close. So like, okay, that my beginning stages of panic as I'm, looking at this picture and taking some deep breaths so that I don't, bring chemistry into it by hyperventilating, when there's less oxygen in the air is a really bad plan. But I look at it and, deep breathing going, oh, that's actually not quite as wide as I thought. And I'm more uncomfortable to just let this go right here. Now, this is very guided, in terms of my own instinct. I listen very carefully to, and I got okay, this can work. We can find a way to do this, because it's not, in fact, nearly as tight-ropey as you think it is, or as you once thought it was. A few minutes ago, when you actually look at it, Kate, the facts and the evidence on it are that it really isn't. So sneak up on that bad boy and let's go do this. And I'm like, how am I going to do that? How am I going to do that? I don't want to try to even, scooch like this, but I'm not comfortable with my normal stance. There was actually room, technically, for my normal stance. But, I'm looking at the reality is that seems like there's rock there, and that might just be a whoosh, of my left foot. I don't want to do that. Well, okay, how can you do it that's safe, that's reasonable? Or would you rather just turn around? Like, I think I can do this. I think I just have to find another way to do this other than, like this, or, like this, or like this, I'm not comfortable with any of those options. Well, what are you comfortable with? And immediately I realized what I was going to need to do. And I'm sure that there are people who would be like, what is this woman doing? I sat down. Totally sat down right there. And fortunately, there were rocks, on this trail. It's like, thank you, nature, for making this a huggable route for Kate. Because I hugged and shimmied and I scooched on my butt until I got to, I don't know, maybe it was 20 feet of having to scooch a little bit. I had to stop and rest. I don't generally scoot at elevation. I'm usually just walking, but I went ahead and I sat down and I just scooched until I felt comfortable. And I scooched with my feet in front of me, not hanging over the cliff. It wasn't that close. So it was more confirmation to me that if I need to scooch and I wanted to, hang my feet that way, they wouldn't go over the cliff exactly. My ankles would be hanging over a little bit, but I scooched, just went this way and kept, hugging the mountain and going. And it put the reality factor in there of what you saw that was for realsy happening is in fact how you could navigate it. It was just a matter of change your perception that, oh my God, this isn't doable. And, if I get stuck in that place of, oh my God, this isn't doable, then I need to just turn around and make it not doable. And at least give myself a chance, though, to know that the next time I went on that pass, I went through it and I didn't even know it was the same one. I started laughing because I've learned how to scooch where I don't feel comfortable, where I can't, really navigate that without feeling severe panic. Then I sit down on my hiney and I scooch that all the way until I'm there, and I make no excuses for it or feel no ways about it other than this is what I got to do to take this mountain, and that's what I'm going to do safely. But the reality of what I was doing to someone else's reality, they could see the width of the trail just the same as I could. But if I'm not going to even attempt it based on a reality that I don't really know is really real, wasn't until I took the picture and could actually see. My panic was starting to overtake me a little bit too much to be fair in the assessment. That's really, you've done trails very similar to this. It's just this has the visual of there's no scrub brush or anything to keep your mind off the fact that there's still, double digit and a comma elevation between you and the ground. There's a lot of elevation before you get to back to your car, and you'd like to get there slower than faster, right? So you've actually done this, and it was, a moment where, panic and me not looking at the reality of the situation, I could have wigged out hard and started overexerting myself, hyperventilating, and then I start getting the effects of chemistry and biology getting involved unnecessarily because I haven't looked at the reality of what's really going on here and what is it that's causing me fear. Well, the elevation, okay, well, that's legit, so decide right off the top, do you want to go forward or do you not? And if I decide I want to go forward, then I have to let go of the, complete wigging out thing. Like, okay, then if you want to go forward, you must stop, hyperventilating. You must take some deep breaths, and you must stop for a minute and collect your beans, all of them, and get this pulled together, because you're not really going legitimately forward, seeing everything exactly as it is if you're coming from an angle of any kind of, I'm not really looking at reality. I got a glimpse of it and decided, that's what that is. Oh no. And so I stood there, with my back to the beautiful mountain. Thank you. Hug me hard. That when I took the picture and looked at it, I can do this. All right. And when I got there and I sat down and started scooching, I'm talking to myself the whole way, talking to my own soul, my own spirit, God, whatever you call that. I talk to my own self and say, do I feel reasonable that what I'm doing is, it's not getting narrower. Okay. It's not unsafe to be doing this. There's no glass. There's no anything. I checked everything. That's where my OCD comes in handy. I used to be very OCD. Well, be OCD at the right time and only use those skills when they're necessary, and don't make that a way of life. Make it a way of navigating this part of the trail to get off this part of the trail and nothing more, and so I looked at all those things and went, okay. And do you in fact have the strength and the endurance to scooch on your booty for 20 feet or whatever it was? Well, yes, I'm not going to have to, low crawl or duck walk the whole way back to my car, from however many feet it was, then yes, I can. Okay, cool. Can you take a breath? Can you stop for a few seconds and take a breath so that you don't overexert yourself as you're using different muscles that I don't generally, crawl like that around. So, it used a few muscles differently, and I was starting to get a little bit hyperventilating and starting to get a little bit lightheaded. So can you stop for a minute? Because the reality of what's happening happening is that you are navigating this trail. It's not you not navigating the trail that's the problem. It's that you're starting to get a little bit hyperventilative here. You're going to hyperventilate, and that's just unnecessary. So if you just stop, the hyperventilation might make you feel like you're having panic, and you'll have panic because you're hyperventilating, not the other way around. So, you're actually, the reality of this situation, your emotions of, oh dear, are valid. Look at what's really happening is that it's really just your heart rate's going up, and that's giving you the sensation that there's panic involved. And there really isn't. You're feeling okay about this. And I wasn't, like feeling warm and fuzzy. I'm not saying that. My emotion was not that, oh, cool, I figure out how to do this. I felt secure, and I still felt the tinge of I feel uncertainty because this is new territory. I've not done this before. I've not ever come to this kind of activity, which is where anxiety comes from, is we haven't navigated that before, or we have navigated it before and it didn't go well. So, those are pretty common, and I hadn't navigated that at all. I've only been hiking about 6 months, and that was only about maybe 3 or 4 months into it. So I hadn't seen that kind of trail yet, but I walked that trail again. As I said, I walked it again another couple months later after that, and I was laughing because I went, this looks really familiar. And oh, that's because you're coming from the other side of where you had to boot scooch over there on the other side. But I didn't know that until I passed that spot, and it's only because I was able to navigate what's the reality of this situation that I could learn going into other mountain situations where it was similar. Sometimes I turned around and went back that, no, I'm not going to be able to boot scooch or anything, and I don't fly, so none of it's valid. I got to go, because the valid real-time reality is that that's beyond my skill of what I feel like I have, or that I can even, think of an idea of how I could have it. And I'm not just going to rig something in my mind, Jimmy rigged something in my mind just to be able to do it. It has to be a real and safe navigation of what I'm doing, not just, come up with some cockeyed scheme about, I'll just wing one leg over while I, do this. No. So when I got to it and I was coming at it from the other side and kind of like, oh, that's really cool. It means that I've helped that anxiety moment by looking at reality. And when I was coming up on it, that's why it struck me. And I was thinking about it as I was going, is that I think I've seen this before, this situation before. I've definitely seen, and it seems to me I've seen this before, but I don't remember why. And I had to slow down. The reality is that it does narrow down, but even from the other side, it still narrows down. The reality of it was that, yes, that's right. And then I was thinking, yeah, that's got a drop. There's nothing there. There's no trees. There's nothing. There's just the rocks. That looks pretty freaky. But because being able to see it from the other side and then navigate it successfully without wigging out and losing my mind, unnecessarily. If I'm gonna wig out and lose my mind, it's going to be for a good reason, not because I couldn't figure it out. I'm going to try figure it out first, and then if I don't figure it out, well, I'll think about losing my mind then, but I'm probably going to figure it out, either turn around or navigate this, and don't intertwine what those are. If you're turning around, turn around and let it go. Just let it go. And if you're not turning around and you're going to go forward, then let the fear go of, oh no, let all that go. We need all your faculties right here, Kate, put it right here, and do that, and don't wait, do that. So anyhow, it's the reality of what we're actually experiencing. Is this situation, am I taking it in with the reality of what it is? Am I making stuff up? Am I in denial about what's happening? Or am I, too overly involved in what's happening? Am I over dramatizing what's happening? Am I under, reporting or over reporting? That just takes practice. It just takes practice in those situations. And I wouldn't recommend that we, learn at 10,000 feet. That's not what, that's not the way to go with that, because I have navigated it in that situation I mentioned. Doesn't mean that that's how it happened always, or that it will happen always. I mean, it depends on the situation. But because I'm able to get better about, let's assess the scene, go more paramedic with that, and see what is the reality of this world right here. What are people saying? What are people doing? What is blah blah blah. What's the situation for realsy? Not what I wish it was, not what I hope it would be, not what I'm gonna pray and it'll get there soon. What is it right now? Real-time assessment of what's going on with this right here, right now. What am I doing here? What's my purpose here? what is my objective here, and is it lined up and in alignment with the actual current situation, and is it supportive of successfully navigating this situation? If any one of those are out of whack, or we don't have a good response on that, then we need to start reassessing the algorithm of why am I here again, and if this isn't supportive of me successfully navigating whatever it is, whatever it is. If I can't make it through the grocery store because, there's somebody in there causing a ruckus and I feel anxious about it, I probably don't want to gamble those odds that person, if they're already slamming stuff around in the store, I'm probably going to want to evacuate pretty quickly. Real quick, I don't want to make this one real long, but I was in the grocery store the other day, actually, and the lights went out, totally pitch black, went, that's bizarre. There's been a lot of snow and, weird weather and stuff north of us, and we didn't get a whole lot. Why is this dark? And I stood there in a minute, for a second, I was thinking, oh no, I just went out of here, and I had my stuff, I was just there for a few things, and I had the little cart, and I sat it down, like, I'm out. I'm going to just, get the flashlight on my phone, and I'm out. I'm not doing this dark stuff. That's crazy. And I said, just stop what you're doing there for a second. Hey, Kate, before you bug out of this store, because you don't really want to have to come back later, do you? Assess the situation, go paramedic with it. Go ahead, go. I stood there for a second. I put the basket down. That I did do. It was already done. And I went, oh, okay. And I listened, like, no, nobody's getting hysterical. There's nobody screaming. There's no quick movement that I hear. There's no knocking around. There's no noise. I guess everybody was grown up in that store, but except for me, going, oh no, in my mind, or they were quietly going, oh no, in their minds also, I don't know. But there wasn't any big, anything. There was nothing there. And like, okay, has there been any, report of bad weather that I may have missed the timing on it? No, not that you're aware of. I went through all the stuff that was the real, real D, 3D right here in my face, D, of what can I eliminate, as being a danger. And, excuse me, and like, okay, well, then if you don't feel any sense of danger, the hackles on the back of your neck are not up, standing up at, attention and going, get out. Just hang with this for a second, because it does mean that you will have to get these items later, and you really need them now in order to go home and do what you were planning to do, or leave them behind and go to another store, so, you're almost home, and this might be really okay. Let's just take a look at this and see, what is it for realty? And don't be making stuff up. And so navigate that for a few minutes of, okay, there's nothing really to be concerned with. It does mean that, I'm going to need to pop my light on in order to finish getting the item I had my hand on, because I don't want to just take whatever that might be. And I stood there for a minute, just kind of taking it in and going, am I really going to just put my flashlight on and get this and start walking towards, the cash register that probably won't be able to work, And I'm thinking, oh, well, the lights will come on any second. And they didn't. Their backup generator needs a minute, probably, with a technician or something to give it, a little bit of a checkup, because it was seriously delayed. It was, and that kind of caused me a brief amount of concern. And then I'm like, are we going down that algorithm too of what the backup generator may or may not do? You're going to bug out of here in a minute if it doesn't come on either way, because you won't be able to buy your stuff. Not because you're afraid, though. Walk out of here for the right reason, and not running out unless there's a reason to. Don't run out of places that don't require you to run out, because that's a waste of all that adrenaline stuff. Is just hard on the body, and please don't. So I waited, I just stood there. I'm like, okay, why bother to, waste my battery life, because I was low on that, and be looking and shopping for the exact item, and, take this basket and start hoofing it towards the front. Why waste that? If the backup generator's not coming on, I'm leaving without the basket anyway. So, okay, it's getting through the logic of all of it, getting through the real-time reality of it, and within, I'd say it was about a minute. It was a long minute for being in the dark. I'm not fond of the dark, and they didn't have, that's when I found out my local grocery store doesn't have emergency lighting. For a few minutes, like a few seconds, there wasn't even emergency lighting. There were these like dimly lit, like felt like a bar situation or something. Like, this isn't mood lighting we needed to be having in here. When the lights go out, we need more than mood lighting there at the grocery store. But when the backup generator kicked on, it brought on a lower level of light, so I knew that it was still, working on an emergency backup of some kind. And I decided then, as I grabbed that last item and started walking, that all right, if the emergency generator if it doesn't kick on to the real live, honest to goodness lights here pretty soon, or get back up to full, operational before I get to the cash register, then I'm just going to go on ahead and move on, because I don't know what's causing that problem. And it could be anything, and I really don't want to mess with that. But that's looking at it from the reality of what was happening, that they could be having some sort of an electrical something for all I know, and it's just that we're inside the store and have no idea. We're just calm in there thinking, yeah, it's no big deal, and it could be. Chances are it wasn't, and apparently it wasn't. I didn't hear any trucks, and didn't see anything, any big activity. Who knows? So with Mercury retrograde, it can knock out all kinds of electrical systems, and we've got coronal mass ejections from the sun that cause some weird stuff, and that kind of thing drops into my mind too. That the science part of it is that we've got some electrical grids will be affected sometimes by these big emissions from outer space, and so keep that all into context. That it's probably not that there's a fire somewhere and you just don't know about it. All right, so anyhow, I hope that's helped in some way, and that you enjoy whatever part of the day you're in. Thank you very much for joining me, and remember, get within your skin, because you're divine. It's absolutely fine. I'll see you again next time. Take care, friends. Bye-bye.